It is so great having my next guest back here on the program, UFC commentator, reporter extraordinaire, Laura Sanko, back here on the show. Laura, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good as always. It's the holidays, so everything in life is a little extra, a little crazy right now, but I'm excited to be talking to you, of course. So thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate that. And I figured good week, calm before the storm. We got UFC 269 next week, so figure a little bit of a buffer. But you mentioned it there. That's where I wanted to start it. How was your Thanksgiving? What'd you get up to?
It was good. It was good. We headed down to Dallas, Texas, which is where my sister-in-law and her family are. They've got a beautiful big house, so we had extended family, and it was good. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of fun to go eat someone else's food and enjoy their house, and then just say thank you, and then go home and not have to do
Yeah.
all the work. I did help. I did all the dishes. I did some cooking. I actually like cooking. I just don't want to be in charge of the whole thing. It's a lot of
No,
work.
it is a lot of pressure. I've done the hosting thing as well, and I don't I cook a bit, but it's mainly my wife having to feel all the pressure there. So I get that completely. Let me ask you this too: favorite Thanksgiving dish? I just talked to Stephen Thompson. He told me that it's mac and cheese for him. What is it for you?
You know, I'm a dessert girl. I'm not gonna lie. I like turkey. I like stuffing and mashed potatoes and all that good stuff. I love my sister-in-law makes this amazing cranberry chutney. But I'm like A minus on the meal. I'm really laser focused on the pecan pie and the pumpkin pie. If I'm
There you
being
go.
honest. Yeah.
Excellent selections. That's good. And now, before people think they're watching the Food Network here, we do got to talk some fighting here. UFC 269, just a stack card, and the main event, one of the fights of the year on paper for sure. We've got the champion Charles Oliveira taking on Dustin Poirier. One thing I wanted to ask you, even before we get into the matchup, is Charles is the underdog in this fight, which you typically don't see with a champion facing the challenger. But just your thoughts on that, and then we'll sort of dig into the matchup.
Well, it definitely makes for a really interesting storyline coming into this fight, right? And I think it speaks to everybody's unstated idea, and that's that, like, Dustin is not that he's the rightful champion, but Dustin was the one who was in line to be fighting for the belt. He went for the money fight. More power to him. He is a prize fighter after all. It's what these guys do this for. So I think he made the right decision. But the fact is that all of us fans and media members and whoever we are enjoying the sport, in the back of our mind, even when we were watching Michael Chandler fight Charles Oliveira, and it was a fantastic, amazing fight, the whole time we're thinking, yeah, but what about Dustin Poirier? What about
Yeah.
Dustin Poirier? So now we finally get to answer that question. I think the odds speak to the fact that, man, I mean, what Dustin has accomplished in this division, honestly, in his entire UFC tenure, but in this division over the past 7, 8 years is second to none at this point. So it's gonna be a rough road to hoe for Charles Oliveira to defend that belt. But I think Charles Oliveira is finally at a point in his career where he's more than capable of doing that. And I mean, that's the beauty of the sport, is we get to find out.
How do you look at this fight from a style perspective? We know Oliveira is sort of known for his ground game, but his stand-up has really improved over the last little bit, especially in that Kevin Lee fight where he actually went toe-to-toe with Lee in that one. Poirier, obviously, his stand-up's great as well, with we saw with Conor McGregor in both those fights. So how do you look at this fight in terms of it on paper?
Well, I think, a lot of times when you talk about fighters like Charles Oliveira, the term that I always like to throw out there is danger factor. Charles Oliveira is one of those guys that has a super high danger factor, in that he can catch you in any type of submission, from top, from bottom, at about any given moment. And he has become a danger in the striking department as well. The knock on Charles in the past has always been, his mental durability. And I think, for one, that needs to, I mean, that just, it can't be part of the conversation anymore. There's too much evidence, video evidence, that I could point to that shows you that whatever may or may not have ever existed in that column just needs to be crossed off, because that's not a
Mhm.
factor for him anymore. However, the physical durability, right? Like, Charles Oliveira, we saw him almost get put out in his fight with Michael Chandler. We could be having a completely different conversation right now. We're seconds away from having a very different conversation right now. So that that's a tough thing, coming into a fight against a guy like Dustin Poirier, who has proved time and time again that not only does he have a ridiculously high level skill set in every facet of MMA, he also has the durability. So I think I'm not prepared to call this one.
Mhm.
Luckily, I don't have to call this one, James Lynch.
Of course, yeah, it's all good.
It's just it's tricky. Charles Oliveira has those danger factors in any given facet of this game, but Dustin Poirier overall has fought the better competition. He's been in the wars. He's survived the wars. He thrives in wars. And I'm not sure that that is one thing that you can say has necessarily been proven yet about Charles Oliveira.
It's a great fight, and something you touched on there was the fact that Poirier decided to fight McGregor and you know, get a bigger payday. I mean, who wouldn't want to fight Conor McGregor and have that notoriety? And I think that's also part of the reason why he is a favorite in this fight as well, is because of who he beat in Conor McGregor, a guy that, you know, has created such a legacy for himself. But on that note, there's some school of thought that this might be one of Poirier's last fights. Do you get that sense as well, that, you know, with him and his family and his foundation, that maybe he's looking, you know, a bit ahead here and trying to think of, you know, the financial side of things after fighting? Or do you think we will see a lot of Dustin Poirier if should he win or lose on December 11th?
You know, I think it depends a little bit on the result of this fight, and there's no knock on him either way, right? I mean, I think we can all safely say that even if Dustin Poirier were to lose to Charles Oliveira and step away from the sport, what he has accomplished in what has long been one of the deepest, if not the deepest division in the history of the UFC, for how long he has been doing it, the ups and the downs, the things that he has pulled himself back from. I mean, he's Hall of Fame material even without having won the belt. Now, that being said, if he goes on to win the belt, I personally think he's going to want to stick around and, you know, defend his castle for a while. Either way, though, Dustin Poirier has achieved, to me, he's achieved what, in some sense, I don't know. It's hard for me to say. It's not fair for me in my position to say it's more important than the belt. But I think, you know, you get to a certain point, and it is about legacy. We throw that term around all the time, right? We all want to build a legacy. Dustin Poirier is one of the few guys who's honestly done that. Like, it's hard to find a fan who doesn't speak highly of his skills inside the octagon, of who he is as a family man, and then all of the charitable work that he does, the ways that he gives back to his community. To me, he's like the poster child of, you want to have a successful career, belt or no belt, right? Like, at the end of the day, it matters, yes, but like, this is life. I'm talking about like so much more beyond MMA and beyond the UFC. Dustin Poirier has done it all, and he's done it all beautifully, beautifully well. And that to me is like, that's the cake. That's what we're all after. He's done it.
Yeah, no, very well said. The co-main event, you know, again, like she usually is, Amanda Nunes is a big favorite going into this fight with Julianna Pena. So rather than sort of breaking this down, what does Julianna Pena need to do to win this fight? I think that's the question a lot of people want answered.
You know, if I had that answer, she probably would be paying me a lot of money to corner her.
Right, you would be here. You'd be in her corner, right? So there you go.
Exactly. But I think it comes down to a couple things. And one of them that we always talk about in these situations, whether it's the women that are fighting Amanda or the women that are fighting Valentina, it's the mentality. And that is that you cannot allow yourself to be beat before you step foot inside the octagon. Now, if you'll go back and watch every interview that she's done recently, and I'm sure that it's going to pick up even more in the coming weeks, that's something that she goes back to, is that I'm not like these other girls. I'm not going to crumple under the pressure. Every other opponent of Amanda has also said that, however, but I actually think, I honestly believe it when Julianna Pena says it, not only because she's saying it in this moment, she's been saying it for a really long time. I mean, she has been asking for, demanding this fight, and it's really kind of hard to put your finger on, because other girls have called out Amanda in the past, but there's something about when Julianna Pena says, I want to fight Amanda Nunes, I actually think she means it. And the fact that I actually think she means it tells me something about her mindset coming into this fight. She has overcome a lot in her professional career, health-wise, you know, things outside of the octagon. I don't question her durability whatsoever. Skill set-wise, I think she's got fantastic cardio, and she'll be smart to push this fight, you know, make it dirty, make it long, make it grimy. Some of the things we saw Jermaine Durandamy have success with against Amanda Nunes, I think Julianna Pena brings to the table. That being said, it's like, I don't know, it's so impossible to do a really fair analysis of anybody facing Amanda, because there's just not a lot to talk about. There just isn't. Like Amanda is amazing in every facet of this game. The only interesting talking point, I think, coming into this fight is the length of time that we have not seen Amanda at bantamweight.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
as I forget how old Amanda is. Do you remember?
She's in her 30s. I'll check it right now as
Late
you
30s,
kind
I
of
think.
assess it. Yeah.
Yeah, there does come a point. I'm not saying she's at this point. Like literally, I'm grasping for straws here, if I'm being honest. But there does come a point.
33, by the way. She's 33. 33 years
33.
young.
Okay. So there does come a point where once you sort of settle more into like a particular frame, a 45 frame, and it's been a minute since she's made 135. Could it be a difficult cut? I don't know. Like again, I just feel like I'm kind of like reaching for storylines here, because the real storyline is that Amanda Nunes is the greatest of all time, and Julianna Pena has a big challenge ahead of her.
Well, and Nunes also got COVID as well, so you don't know the long-term effects of that. I mean, we're seeing with certain fighters it is affecting them, others it isn't. So that'll be
Motherhood,
something.
it's a
Yeah.
rough one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's a lot that sort of goes into this, but very well said as far as the co-main event. Just a couple more fights we wanted to sort of touch on this card. Cody Garbrandt dropping the flyweight and fighting Kayla France, I think is very interesting and somewhat flying under the radar with how stacked this card is. I've talked to a lot of his teammates. A lot of them say that Cody doesn't need to cut that much weight to get to the weight class because, typically when a fighter moves down later in their career, it doesn't go so well, except Jose Aldo. He's the exception. But for most people, yeah, so if you think about it, that's what kind of makes this a little bit interesting. And Kayla France, a very, very, very tough opponent here. So what do you make of this fight and Cody's drop in pursuit of flyweight gold in his career?
I didn't love it at first just because I'm not a huge proponent of massive weight cuts. And I know a lot of people have seen pictures and say, oh, I don't think he looks drawn out at all. I actually think he looks really great. And to your point, Jose Aldo, Edson Barboza, both guys who never in a million years did I think that they would look good a weight class, especially Edson Barboza. Like I never, ever, ever thought he would move down a weight class. If anything, I thought he would move up and still do really well. But here I am eating eating that opinion for humble pie here. And I think the proof is going to be in the product. But from the photos I've seen, the video I've seen, I think he looks great. And I want to say he did a test cut already, which is a super smart idea to understand. The weight comes off very differently when you're dealing with water weight versus, but when your body fat percentage is already super low, that water weight, generally isn't there. I'm excited to see it. I think he's going to have a frame, like a pretty big frame at flyweight. He's going to have a nice reach. I'm interested to see though, because he was so exceptionally fast at bantamweight, and everybody is exceptionally fast at flyweight. So the trade-offs between size and speed are always fascinating to me, but kudos for him. I think I'm anxious to see it. I want to watch. And so there's your answer right there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And two former opponents of Garbrandt are actually fighting on this card in the prelims, which goes to show you again how stacked this card is we have Pedro Munhoz deciding not to go to 125. He's sticking around. He's going to be taking on Dominick Cruz, the former bantamweight champion. What do you make of this fight? Because Cruz coming off that split decision over Casey Kenny, Pedro Munhoz obviously losing to Aldo. So really big fight for both guys as they look to move up the bantamweight division.
This is this to me is like a main event type fight, for fight night. Honestly, anytime Dominick Cruz, I know he has spent so much time away from the octagon that maybe the brand has diminished a little bit with how we're just this constant, like, whatever's the latest, greatest thing for this fan base. But man, anytime Dominick Cruz fights, I'm excited to watch it. I thought he looked fantastic against Casey Kenny. Pedro Munhoz, tough every single every single place that this fight can go. I don't know. That's a good one. I'm just surprised it's so far down on the card, to be honest with you. This is going to be a good night. Merry Christmas to us.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think it's the power of Sean O'Malley. I mean, he's on the main card, right? And I think it just goes to show where the eyeballs are at, and nothing against either fighter, but O'Malley's one of the best businessmen and brand ambassadors in MMA in terms of getting his brand out there. So I think that's a credit to him as well. One more fight I wanted to touch on. I always like getting like a sleeper fight. You're an Invicta FC girl, someone that's, done a lot of work for them. Erin Blanchfield is fighting Miranda Maverick. I'm really interested by this fight because it's two prospects head to head. Miranda having that close fight with Macy Barber. Some people felt like she won. And then you got Erin Blanchfield, who just looked dominant in her debut, and she's even had some good wins prior to her getting in the UFC. So just your thoughts on this fight and the fact that UFC is making this fight so early in their careers.
Yeah, this is a fascinating matchup, and I'm honestly surprised it's not a matchup that we saw in Invicta, but we get treated to it here. I think, man, Miranda Maverick, talk about a physical specimen. At flyweight, that girl is, and I use this term all the time for her, and she doesn't mind it because she's a Missouri girl like me. That girl is farm strong. I mean, she has a physicality and a frame that is really, really unique for that division, and she puts it to work. Her striking has made huge strides. She's a phenomenal grappler. But Erin Blanchfield, if you have not educated yourself on Erin Blanchfield, do yourself a favor, go to Fight Pass, go watch a few fights of hers in Invicta. She is so much fun to watch. And this, as like innocent and pretty and just so sweet as she looks, she is an absolute gangster and has been in some real insane wars. So this is going to be a good one. I feel like their skill sets are very, very evenly matched. I do give Miranda maybe a little edge in just the physicality department, but I mean, again, we're gonna find out. But these girls, they have a history of being able to throw down. So I agree with you. It's a sleeper match for sure.
Sticking with Invicta alums, Felicia Spencer. I just told you this before you came on here. You didn't even know she's apparently retired. calling it a career. Had a lengthy statement. If you want to go check that out, Dave Van Auken, great job getting that interview and discovering that. But just your reaction to hearing that, and Felicia, deciding that now's time for her to step away.
I mean, I guess I'm surprised because to me, she is still someone very much on the upward trajectory of her career, but I guess my only reaction is congratulations. When a fighter makes that decision, you better believe that it's not, a spur of the moment, especially when it's not right after a loss. But when they come out, in between fights and have obviously thought about it, made a statement, she's given it a lot of thought. And I think her reasons behind it are good ones. She talked a lot about mental health, her physical health, and, MMA is an amazing sport that roots itself inside you, and it's really, really hard to not have it in your life in some way, shape, or form. I'm a really good example of that. But it's a really unforgiving sport as well. It's a sport that will take a lot from you in terms of your sanity, your physical body, what you go through, your finances, all of that stuff, and doesn't always give back, what you've given to it. So I hope that her memories and her feeling of her career are good ones, because she's had some pretty incredible moments. I mean, I remember her fighting Chris Cyborg and shocking a lot of people about how tough she made that fight for Chris, beating Megan Anderson. I mean, she's done some incredible stuff, and she should be very, very proud of what she's been able to accomplish.
What do you think this means for the future of the 145-pound division? Because she was obviously one of the mainstays there. She was never going to 35. So what do you think about that? Because some people are worried that this might be the end of it.
Honestly, I think as long as Amanda wants there to be a featherweight division, there's going to be a featherweight division, because she's the queen of that division, and deservedly so. And I think that's a big part of her legacy for her career, is to be able to go back and have these bantamweight, featherweight, championship matches. So I don't, it's obviously not the deepest division. It'd be silly to sit here and say that it was, but no, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I mean, Felicia was a big part of it, but I don't think she was like the cornerstone of it. And, we have some very interesting people not in the UFC that we know can make 145. So
there we go. Well, we might as well get into it, because I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, Kayla Harrison is a free agent right now. It's interesting because, Dana sort of made some comments kind of hinting that maybe they weren't interested. And then we see Felicia go to the Bellator show. Mind you, they happen to be in Florida, so I think that was part of it. She lives in Florida, by the way. But what do you make of Kayla being this free agent so early in her career? She's done everything she needs to do in PFL. I think people want to see that step up. What do you think is going to happen, or what would you like to see happen?
Well, what I would like to see happen is I would love to see her come to the UFC. That's just the fan in me, because I would love to see her fight Amanda. And as much as I, for them, don't enjoy the storyline of two teammates fighting each other, as a fan, I mean, I'm sorry, but like that's fascinating to me. The psychology of two women that have trained so closely together, fighting each other, and an advantage that no one has ever had over Amanda before. I mean, there are so many interesting things about that fight. And honestly, forget all that stuff. I really, really like Kayla Harrison as a person, as a fighter. After, the last pay-per-view, I was flying home. Yeah, I was leaving New York, and I had a long layover in the airport, and I was exhausted, so I went and found one of those spa places, and I was like I was getting a foot massage and just like passed out in the chair, and I hear this girl go, Laura, Laura. And I was like, what? And Kayla was like across from me doing the same thing. So she and I ended up having a really long, really, really great conversation. And I cannot say enough good things about her as a person and as an athlete. And for me as a fan, I hope she makes it to the UFC. But those decisions are many, many pay grades above my own. So we'll see.
Someone else who we found out is a free agent this week is Kevin Lee. What was your reaction to hearing that news? Because he did have a few more fights left on his contract.
Yeah, I was surprised about that one as well. I mean, I don't have any, unfortunately, interesting, insider information about that. But yeah, when I saw that headline, I was a little shocked about it. Yeah, listen, his last fight wasn't awesome. But that being said, he was coming off, an injury and a really, really long layoff, and then the suspension. And there's so many factors beyond just looking at someone's Tapology report and seeing, oh, they had X number of wins or losses. So, I'm not privy to that any of that information, but I really, really like Kevin as a person as well. And I enjoy watching him fight. So I'm excited to see where he lands. And, I expect big things from him. I think, from what I've heard, pretty much every other major organization is super interested in him. So it sounds like he's got, a buffet of opportunities before him, and deservedly so. I hope he finds another home, and I hope he's really, really happy. And I'll be watching.
Yeah, I think we all will. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Okay, my last question. We're coming up to the end of the year here. Probably going to be our last chat before the end of 2021, and you've had an incredible year.
Oh, James, say
What's
it's
that?
not.
Well, listen, you got to enjoy time with your family. I got to go stay with my in-laws this holiday, so it's a lot of stuff going on with me as well. Okay. But in general, you've had an incredible year. You did the commentary this year. That was a big milestone for you. I'm curious, do you have any goals set for next year? If so, would you mind sharing them here? Because I'm always curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, me, I always have goals. I think, my goal next year, I would like to be able to call fight nights, or a fight night, or hopefully more than one fight night. That has not been, it's not necessarily been a conversation that's taken place. So we'll see. I'm just putting it out there to the universe. But yeah, that's definitely my goal. I think it was a fantastic opportunity, and one that, I'm certainly not looking down upon. To do 10 weeks straight calling Contender Series fight was great, because I got to work with, different guys week after week after week. It's really good to get those reps in. I was really, really, really pleasantly surprised about the reception to my being in that role. I was super nervous about it. And I'm not going to lie, especially after the first few shows, I would just immediately run to Twitter and like, oh God, what did they say about me?
Oh, you can't do that. Because look who the people are watching. The people that, the respected peers, the John Anicks, the Fitzgeralds, those are the ones who should be giving you the good feedback.
You got to check. Yeah. And I was pleasantly surprised that the vast majority of people were happy with it and excited about it and would like to see more. So hopefully, my goal is to call fight nights next year. We'll see if it happens. I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. And just continue to grow on the analyst side of things in whatever shape that takes. Someone asked me, kind of like, fighters talk about what they want to leave and their legacy and stuff. And it's weird to think about the same thing from the broadcast point of view, but I am in it for more than just like showing up every week and getting a paycheck. And I think when I thought about it, it really comes down to like I want to be a respected voice, in this sport at the end of the day, where when I talk, people are at least somewhat interested in what I have to say and the opinions I have. So hopefully I can build that reputation and crush 2022, James. Let's do it.
Let's do it. I love it. It's great to hear. And before we get out of here, I just have to ask, what does the R on your hat stand for? I've been wondering this the entire interview.
Really funny. It's Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe sent me.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
A bunch
Knew
of
it looked familiar.
And I love Phil Rowe, but you would think I was like dyed in the wool biggest Phil Rowe fan of all time as often as I wear these hats, because you probably see them in like every interview I do. It just so happens I really do like Phil Rowe, but they fit my head great.
Yeah, hats are a tricky thing, even for me. Like I'm very particular about the hats I wear. Yeah,
they fit my head head great. And I have an absolutely gigantic forehead. And sometimes when I do these Zoom interviews, the angle of the camera just really accentuates it. So honestly, it's really just me covering up an insecurity, if I'm being honest. Thanks for the hat, Phil.
There you go. It's a good looking hat. And Laura, thanks so much for doing this. Always a pleasure. And like I said, if we don't speak, have a great holiday season. I know there's still more work to come, but we are wrapping up the end of the year here pretty quickly. If there's anything you want to plug before we get out of here, I'll give you the last word.
No, man, I'm excited for the year that you've had as well. You know, big things for you too. I mean, I know it's your show, but congratulations to you on the betting stuff that you're doing. I mean, I feel like I'm seeing you more and more and more places now. And, you know, those tweets pop up on fight night. I'm like, oh, I know that guy.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that.
Congrats to you too. And I hope
thank you.
hope 2022 is a big one for you as well.